Hello pawb, well welcome to you tonight to the webinar. Croeso cynnes mawr I chi heno I webinar. Warm welcome to Phil Lemos from Ffotograffiaeth for joining us tonight for the webinar. Looking forward to get to know some tips and what we can do in our businesses to have good images. Hefyd croeso cynnes I Louise McNutt o Cywain, gan bod Menter Moch ar y cyd gyda Cywain heddiw yn gwneud y webinar yma. A webinar with Cywain, therefore croeso cynnes. A warm welcome to Louise McNutt from Cywain that are joining us tonight. Phil is very eager for you to ask questions throughout the webinar, so you're welcome to post the questions by using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and then I'll read them out for Phil to answer them live. So yeah, feel free to post them anytime throughout the webinar, and we'll have some discussion. Therefore, without further ado, Phil, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Ellen. Hello, everyone. So welcome to the webinar. So I'm going to hopefully spend some time and talk you through how to get some quality images out of your smartphone and working from home. Now, some of the things we're going to cover will be first of all, getting to know your camera, your smartphone camera, looking at maybe some accessories that you can purchase or acquire to help you get better images. One, obviously, importantly, is presenting your product and how to get the best presentation. I've actually done some examples myself, so a little case study as to how personally I got some decent images out of a smartphone camera. I'll be looking at lighting, so some more general photographic tips like lighting and setting up at home for a studio. Also then actually taking your pictures and what settings to use and how best to get some good content on your phone, as well as some post-production. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I work for a company called Ffotograffiaeth. We're based here in Cardiff Bay, and I've been here for about 15 years now, creating digital content. We produce content around a whole range of disciplines: design, animation, 3D, web and apps, and more. And I've been creating content for all the different arms of the business, from 3D animation to video, as well as photography. So first thing to discuss is how to get the most out of your smartphone camera. You may know how to use your camera, but hopefully these steps will kind of cement your knowledge and maybe teach you kind of what some of the buttons might do that you're not aware of. Give you a bit more confidence when using the camera. All right, so first things first, pretty much any modern camera, any modern smartphone that you get nowadays will have a decent enough camera to use for any kind of photography. And the main reason for barred images out of any smartphone nowadays will be either barred lights or kind of handshake and stuff like that. So, but fresh out the box, any modern smartphone has got a really good camera on there, and you'll be able to get some decent images. Now, one of the main things to consider when you're taking photographs with a smartphone is to use the onboard app for cameras. I mean, what I mean by that is if you look at, say, Instagram, you can go into Instagram and then from Instagram take a photograph using the Instagram camera. Now, a lot of social media and different apps will have an onboard camera or like an installed camera that they'll ask you to use. And I find that these cameras are optimized a little bit and they don't run quite as quickly. They don't take as clear photographs. Personally, this is what I found. What I tend to do is use, you can see here now, this camera, this smartphone right in front of us, little camera icon here. The camera will ship with an app, and I would tend to use that. Now, when it comes to photography, usually the smartphone doesn't offer you too many settings with regards to traditional photographic settings, but you can get apps which you can purchase. Some of them are free, some of them you can buy, which will offer you more options and control over your camera. Now, I don't want to go too far into the sort of the technical side of photography, but for the most part, it's about getting light onto a lens so that you can see what you're taking a photograph of. And you can do this with shutter speed or with aperture. Yeah, scary words, I know, but if you're familiar with them, then there are apps that you can get for your phone, which will allow you to access these controls. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it will give you some control. So it will allow you to, you know, as you're taking the shot, it will allow you to re-expose, get more light in there, and all that kind of fun stuff. So, like I said, I'm not going to go into those details right now. But if you are aware and you have some sort of knowledge of that stuff, then these apps here and others will allow you to do that. So give them a go. One thing that is worth investing in is a tripod. This will reduce camera shake, which is, like I said, one of the main reasons you're going to get a bad image. You can get them bespoke now for camera phones. They're not specific for any kind of camera phone. They're generic, universal. And if you're doing this over a long period of time, you're doing it quite often, then I would suggest getting one, you know, for 20 quid. You can get a half decent one with a remote sort of I don't know, photo taker thing. I think that's what that little button is by here. You can take your shots remotely rather than having to press the button on the phone. But you know, this is great because you can set up your set up your scene, get all your lighting right, get the tripod right, and then sit there and just process as many different products as you want. You know, so it takes a lot of the thinking time out of it and turns it into a bit more of a process. Certainly, another thing to look into is lenses. Now, this may seem a little bit scary, but actually they're quite easy to use and quite easy to fit. They're mostly universal. And they usually come in two flavors. So they'll come as a wide angle lens, which allows you to take photographs, usually for interior design and stuff like that. So not really applicable for you guys, but they'll have a macro lens. Now a macro lens allows you to take super close-up shots of, well, anything really, and it doesn't blur. They're designed to allow you to get really close up. It gives you a really nice kind of depth of field effect, something a bit like this. So, you know, an image like this would be quite difficult to take with a traditional smartphone lens. You'd get it so close, the whole thing would blur out. But with a little lens that just clips over the front of your camera phone, then shots like this are a bit more achievable. Now, obviously, you may not need a super close-up macro shot, but if you do, then you're not really going to get it without a professional camera or a lens. So yeah, I would suggest that if this is going to be something you're doing often, then maybe the tripod for sure, get a tripod. And if you think that you're going to be, you know, benefiting from shots like this, and then a macro lens too. You know, there's a whole host of different options online and they're pretty cheap, so go for it. Okay, so probably one of the most important parts of taking photographs is presenting your product. You can see here, you know, this is a lovely image, fairly simple as well. You know, there are elements to it which aren't, strictly speaking, your produce, you know, so a lot of it is art direction, but you know, it's fairly straightforward and something that you can reuse. You know, that you've got this wine bottle and this pestle and mortar in the background. They could just be sat there waiting for you to take another photograph, you know, just part of your kit. But I'm going to go through and maybe identify what works in these images and maybe how to best present your product. So first things first is wear gloves. You know, what we don't want is fingerprints and marks and grease being getting everywhere. This is, you know, quite a delicate process where you want things to be presented well and professionally. So don your gloves, change them often, not great for the environment. Maybe don't change them too often. But this will avoid having like smears on like your chopping block or knives or anything like that you're using to dress up your photograph. This will avoid all that kind of stuff to keep things nice and clean. So definitely a way to go. Now, I probably shouldn't have to tell you guys this, you are all professionals, but choosing the best bits of meat is really important, you know, because one thing that's very difficult to do is once you've taken the photographs to kind of go in and remove things that you don't want in there. Yeah. So just go for broke. Make sure that the product that you're choosing to shoot is the best you can find, you know. Like particularly for beef and stuff like that, like I might be maybe stretching a bit far here. I'm not an expert, but having like a mildled fat in there is desirable. Not too much fat, but having fat in there is nice, because one thing, it adds a bit of detail and texture to the shot, and also fat means flavor, doesn't it? So it kind of appeals to us. Also trying to get one which is a nice kind of natural color for the cut of meat. I know that if you stack meat, sometimes it can go a little bit blue, you know, a kind of discolor. So take care to avoid that. You know, it's this is the star of the show. So this is an important, you guys will know, you guys have the eye for it. So whatever catches your eye, use that bit. Preparing the product as well. So, you know, what we want here is we don't want to have too much distracting fat. I think that's probably a good way to go. You know, you want some fat in there, but you don't want like hordes of the stuff. So, you know, prepare it as you'd like to. I guess, you know, how the old school butchers would have in their window, you know, with all the kind of frilly little green stuff around them. You want it to like look nice and appealing off the rack, particularly obviously if it's raw meat. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of good photography. Now, I chose these three. You got cooked, raw, and obviously red and white meat. And I think all three of these, well, strictly speaking, they're lovely images. So I guess when we're looking at images that we like, and that's something that I'd encourage you guys to do, is to find a stream of images that you like and you want to emulate. And there's no shame in finding things that you want to copy. Go for it. You know, we get taught as designers to never design in a vacuum, and you know that's what you guys are doing. You're designing these images. Find something you like and go for it. So you know, what makes these images work? Well, for starters, they have they have things in there which aren't meat. These what I would call organic elements. They're here to dress the image and make it just a little bit more appealing. You know, they make the images a bit more natural and organic. So you know, these things as well, you can go out and get each time you're going to do a shot. Sometimes you can keep them there. You've got like a little bowl of salt. There's no need for it to be there, but you know, it looks good. Same with this cleaver here. I'm sure you guys will have a cleaver knocking about somewhere, so have a go with it. You know, it takes a little bit of trial and error to get it set up in a way that looks good, but once you've done it successfully once, you'll find that you stumble across a formula and you'll continue to do it. A lot of these things that I'll go over may seem scary on the offset, and they will be, but trust me, if you're going to give it a go in full hog, and it will become easier every time you do it. So yeah, you know, first of all, organic elements, things which aren't your produce, but help make the image look good. What else? But one thing I noticed is that they all look good on a dark background. It seems to make the product kind of pop off the background, you know. And when I was doing my case studies, which come a little bit later on, I found the same thing. You know, I bought white card and black card on which to shoot, and I just found that white just seemed a little bit, and I just got a bit lost in there. There's no kind of pop, or it didn't jump out at me. So yeah, this is something certainly that you may want to consider, is when you're doing your shots, doing it in a darker background. Okay, so as I said, I did some examples myself. So I went out and did some shopping. I bought myself some steaks. As you can see, you know, like I said earlier, I shot these. Obviously, they're on that wrapper there, but it's on that white table, and it doesn't look great. Personally, I feel like it, you know, it looks a little bit sterile. But anyway, these are the hunks of meat that I bought to shoot, as well as some sausages. But you know, even at this stage, I was looking to see which one I preferred, just from an aesthetic point of view. I settled on the one on the left, just because I found that this steak here was a little bit discolored just to the right here. So, and if you look up here as well, it's that little bit of sort of gone a bit darker purple. The fat wasn't quite as neat, and you know, and the level of detail that we're looking at. These are kind of like the critical decisions you want to be making. Is if you've got two bits there which are both great, then which bit has just a nice bit of fat, and go for that one. It'll seem fussy at the time, but it pays off when you're taking those shots, and when you're looking to put them on your social media or put them online, and then you see them on a big old screen rather than a little camera phone. You're going to want to see a better, you're going to be glad that you made the choice that you did. So I'll cut the steaks. And we got some sausages as well. Maybe a little bit easier to decide here, but what I did was I cut these guys, separated these guys out, and then I rolled them out a little bit just to give them a bit more, bit of a longer shape. Not quite as dumpy. So I prepared them, for photography. Again, you can see here, sat on that white, it just wasn't doing it for me. So yeah, I picked up a chopping block. I didn't know whether I was going to definitely use it or not. This thing was super cheap. It was like a couple of quid from B&M. Other shops are available. But for me, it was a case of going out shopping, having a kind of idea in my head of what I wanted, and just picking a load of things up, just in case. So it wasn't strictly my intention to use this, but when I saw it, I thought, let's go for it. Again, there was a dozen of these things on the shelf. So I took time once I decided that I want to buy it, I took time to find the nicest looking one. So, I scooped through them all. This one was nice all on the edges, but it had a little bit of a chip in the middle. I figured there'll be a big old bit of meat on there so that you won't see it. So, it's, like for me, it comes naturally to me now because it's kind of my job to sort of look for these things, but taking these time over these little steps, it pays dividends in the end. So just give yourself that time. Don't feel like you got to rush it. And I went down to the greengrocers as well and bought some of this stuff. Now, again, I wasn't really aware of what I was buying here. Well, I knew what I was buying, but I didn't know whether I was going to definitely use it or not. I just looked for colors and shapes. I know, obviously, I'd looked at the examples that I'd showed you earlier. I had them in my head, so I knew that I wanted some cherry tomatoes. And then once I got the red, I thought, okay, well, then now I've got red in there, I can just kind of sort of flex out and have a look for different colors. So I just went for things which have volume, so forgive me, I'm not even sure. Is that tarragon? I think. I just saw a big bushy green. I thought that looks great. That'll work. Some garlic in there, that always works. So just go out there. Obviously this stuff will spoil after a while. You've got to use it, but I mean, it cost me 5-6 quid to get all this stuff. So each time you're going to do a photo shoot, go out there, look for nice stuff, look for the best stuff you can find, and get it. It will definitely pay off, So in addition to all the produce and the stuff which will feature in the images, I bought some card. Now, I use this just as a background. I bought white and black, just so that I had the options when it came to shooting. Now, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to use the white. I'd done enough research to make that call for me. But I got it anyway, and also if you have like a brand color, then it may be a good idea to maybe find a bit of card that sort of roughly, approximately gets in the same kind of shade as your brand color. Then you can put that in as a background, and there's a little bit of brand there for you, So if your logo's got a bit of red or green in there, then you might be able to find some card that has a similar color. And again, it seems fussy at this point of the process. It seems like a fussy decision to make. Is it really going to make that much difference? But when you're putting these images up online, and when you're actually using these images, once all this is done and it's just a photograph, you'll be glad of the option. These don't perish. These can sit. You can have a whole stack of these, and take a choice. Okay, so this is kind of how it looked when I was setting up. So you can see here, I put the black card down. I didn't use gloves. You can see a couple of marks here. So, should practice what I preach. But you can see here, this is typical kind of working area for photography. You've got everything to your left-hand side. I was intending to shoot, so from the top left of this image, shooting down at the meat and kind of remaining in that kind of like section there. So you wouldn't see any of the table. All you see is this black card and the meat on there. yeah, a bit more messy. You can see it's it is a bit messy. I think that's why I put this image in there, just to show you that it's kind of it's not like this exact science where it's all super clinical. Often it's craziness. Outside of the photograph is craziness, you know. So I've got towels there just to wipe things down with, scissors, all the kind of stuff that you're going to need, but it can get a bit hectic. One thing you'll notice is what I've done here with the card is I've kind of rolled one section of the card up. Now, this is loads of names in the game, but I call them scoops. And what it allows you to do is bring the camera down. So you're not shooting straight down. It allows you to bring the camera down and then not have any background in there. It kind of basically is like an infinite floor. It brings that black up and behind, so it provides a background for you as well. Pretty good idea if you want to have multiple options for shooting, then it's kind of critical. What I would, if that is definitely something that you want to do, I'd probably look to get big old bits of card and have the whole thing up there so that you have flexibility when shooting and you're not going to get any background in there. Otherwise, if you do, you're going to have to learn how to cut out the background and replace it with black, which is, well, that's post-production and it's pretty technical. So you might not want to go down that route. Anyway, so let's have a look at some of the images. So you can see here, that's pretty decent. I mean, I was pretty happy with that. There has been a little bit of post-production in there. That's just a fancy way of saying photo editing. I'll go into some of that later on. But for the most part, that's just fresh out the camera. What I've done, you can see here, it's a little bit darker towards the edges. That's post-production. That's called a vignette. Very easy to do, and it often looks really cool. And I've just saturated it. So what I mean by that is you tell the photo to kind of add more color from the existing color. Again, fairly easy. What makes this image work is the composition. So I've got the stakes facing opposite ways. Again, that provides a little bit of balance. So that that took me a bit of trial and error. I played around with that for a while, and then it's just a placement of these organic elements. So I basically had my phone with me and I was looking at things that I liked, what things I felt worked, and I copied them, and then I kind of tweaked it so it kind of fitted into what I wanted. But for one of the first images I did, I was pretty happy with that. That's a bit closer up. That's the same composition now. So what I've done is I've just brought the camera around. Now, this is what I meant by using a scoop. I'm a little bit close in here, so I'm not really worried about the background. But if you pull back a bit, or you go a bit wider in the shot, then without that scoop in the background, you're going to see all sorts of mess, the whole room and everything. So that scoop is doing a good job for me. Also, what the scoop does is it prevents any kind of bounced lights from interfering with my shot. So it's always a good idea to take photographs in a dark room and then only have the lights that you want lighting your product to be on. Well, it's a good way to start. So what the scoop does is it kind of prevents any bounced light from kind of coming in and interfering, and that allows for these nice dramatic shadows you can see to the left here. Might not be exactly what you guys want. You're all going to have a different style, but like I said, I identified early on what I felt worked for this photography, and I kind of just pursued that sort of look and feel. Like I said before, if you find a fellow producer who produces nice images, the kind of things that you want to produce, then that's something that you want to just keep as a printout on your wall, and you just go for that. The things I teach you here are applicable and they're pretty general, so you can just kind of take the rules and then use the ones that work for you. You can see here though that there's a bit of a dent in one of these stakes, and it's so easy to do. I mean, I'm sure you guys know, so easy to do just by handling them. So try and be delicate with it so that you keep them as pristine and looking good as possible. I only had these two stakes, and once I noticed that, I just kind of stuck. But I think these images are looking well. I think they look good for both. They look good online as well as being as social media shots. Okay, so a different composition. So I removed one of the stakes, and I kind of played around, I got a bit fancy with the organic elements. So again, what kind of drove my decision making here was the fact that I was on a circular board. So instantly that got my head thinking, well, let's have things kind of like circling the stake, and let's have the rock salt kind of sweeping along like that. So it was a bit of fuss doing that, and a bit fiddly. But I guess this is for, it's not like, this is for like one-off shots maybe, to kind of go into that level of detail where you're fussing. But I guess after a while you may get good at it, and you'll be able to kind of knock these things out fairly quickly. You can see how I've changed the angle now, so I'm looking straight down. And what I did as well is I tried to, I'm using 2 lights at the moment for this, so I reduced one of the lights so that then you get these shadows. If you notice on the chili here, these shadows, so it kind of, that hints of a predominant light from the bottom right of the screen, which I was looking for. I'd identified what I wanted to achieve, and I went for it. Again, guys, the whole time I was doing this, I had reference images up. I was looking at things, kind of call it research, so that I knew what I was going for. You know, I wasn't just kind of stabbing wildly in the dark. There's always a reference that I'm looking at, and there's no shame in that. Yeah, that's the best way to work. Okay, so I thought, how about some close-up? So this isn't too close to require a macro lens, but I'm getting some nice depth of field here. Depth of field is when you have elements in the shot which are blurry, not elements that you want to bring focus to, but kind of extraneous elements. So, and it's nice. So if you can achieve it on your camera phone, I go into it a bit later on, how to achieve it on your camera phone. But it's a nice way of kind of drawing the viewer's attention to what you wanted to, by kind of blurring stuff out that you don't want them to look at. But one thing I noticed here is you see this highlight. Now, I quite like the way the light is falling on the meat here, because it's just kind of edge lighting. So all these white bits, they're the specular kind of like highlights, or basically reflections of the light on the meat. And I think it's quite nice because it kind of adds a little bit of surface detail. But I didn't like this here. So you can see where the highlights kind of dominate. And I found that that made the meat look a little bit greasy, maybe a little bit old. So this is only something that I noticed after doing the shot and putting this presentation together. So I thought I'd point it out. If you get a light which is directly kind of behind the camera, then that light's going to bounce off that meat and hit the camera straight on, which is kind of what's happened here. So what I would suggest is avoid having lights, have lights from at the side, not behind the product, because I think that's probably where it happened. I don't know what you guys think. I just felt that maybe looked just a little bit grim. Anyway, moving on to sausages. I found the sausages a bit more difficult. I think it was because you had several elements. The sausages themselves had to be kind of like, you know, aligned and set up, whereas a stick you could kind of slap it down and it looks decent. But again, trial and error. I googled sausage photography. Yeah, so I put safe search on for that. But this was, you know, again, the whole time I had a reference in front of me, and I used the shape of the cutting board to kind of help determine how I arrange these products. I was pretty happy with this. I felt maybe that the sausages could, if they were a bit longer and maybe a bit more even, I did my best to kind of roll them out, but it didn't really work that well. But, you know, I think maybe, again, this is when it comes down to choosing your product wisely, you know, and getting the best looking product for the shot. But I think, you know, it's doing a decent job. Again, it's, you know, I think it's presentable. And you can imagine some text to the left or the right of this, nice white text would really pop and make a nice professional looking image. Here's me in a bit more close up. I think these worked a bit better actually. What I did was I removed 2 of the sausages, made it a bit easier. But I just felt like the close up element made it just look a bit nice. You can see again here, the garlic is a little bit out of focus, as is the tarragon. I don't know if it's tarragon. Someone let me know if it's probably not. But what these do is, whilst they kind of provide like a form and color to the image, they're clearly not what we're meant to be looking at. You know, we're meant to look at the sausages, and that's what we do look at. I was pretty happy with that shot. I thought that was a bit more successful than the one previous. So here's like a wide shot of my whole the whole process. So you can see it's pretty messy, but that was basically it. What I tend to do is have left and right hand side of the actual scene is where I put, so if things I'm done with, I put to the right hand side, things I'm still using, I put to the left hand side. So there's a bit of a workflow going on. Again, maybe a bit fussy for you guys right now, but little things like that you'll find they will rear their ugly heads when you're doing this. So, you know, it's good to know that there is a workflow that you can use. And one thing is that my my guilty secret is the lights that I'm using. So these are professional lights. They probably cost about 150 quid for the pair. And I know that this is a lo-fi tutorial on how to do images at home, and not everyone has these LEDs at home. But I thought that one of the most important things in photography is lighting. You know, the reason why you have rubbish images is because there's not enough light. And there's a saying that a good photographer thinks about cameras and a great photographer thinks about lights. And there's a reason for that, you know. So if I were to encourage you to make any investment, if this is going to be something that you do long term, for sure it would be getting some decent lights. They don't have to be these ones. You can get I'll go through some options in a bit. Actually, I'll go right now, so you can see. Oh, sorry, technical hiccup. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I'm changing my presentation. So what I want to show you guys is actually why I have two lights. Now, it's obviously to light things from different angles, but with these lights you can turn them up and down, and I did that because obviously you want a predominant light which does most of the illumination, and then you have another light to kind of catch the edges and sort of fill in, if you know what I mean. You can see here in these images on those that tomato up top there, you can see the two specular, so there's two reflections. Now that's nice, you know, that what that does is, as well as illuminate the scene, but it provides form for those tomatoes. It makes them look round and real. So that's what having two lights, having light options provide you. Yeah, you can see here again, the illumination on the two tomatoes is really nice, and they make them pop and make them look juicy. You know, they're not even the star of the show, but all this adds up. Every single one of these little decisions adds up. And you can see here on the right-hand side of the steak there, how that highlight on the fat, you know, you can see there's a wash of light coming in from the right-hand side, and yeah, it looks nice and natural. So, all right, so this shot here is to prove that you can do lighting with anything you got at home, you know, and you can. I mean, what I would suggest is, if this is going to be your solution, is to use cool bulbs rather than warm bulbs, because it usually results in a more sterile looking shot, which you can add warmth to later in post-production. I keep on saying post-production, it's not as scary as it sounds. I do go over it a little bit later on. It's fairly straightforward, and it was something that if you're going to be doing this, I would encourage you to fit that into the workflow too. But you can get away with something as simple as this, you know. In fact, I did a webinar on strictly photography recently, and I've got some images later on which shows you the solutions I came up with. Some IKEA lights, and they were perfect for the job. But you know, if you are going to spend, then there are options. You know, this thing here is pretty good, actually, pretty neat. If your produce is small enough, then these guys, you know, 15 quid, 12 quid, something like that, allows you. It provides a whole light. There you got this LED strip which will illuminate the entire product. And also what it does, it gives you a little scoop as well at the back. So kind of ticks a few boxes there. You know, it's limited depending on what you're shooting, but for something small enough, it's perfect. You've got different color options as well, and I think it ships with them too. So, you know, for $12.99, if you can get away with using this, then it's perfect. So stepping up a little bit, these are 80 quid. Now these things here are decent. I've got a set of these. They call these guys soft boxes. And I have had a pair of these for 10 years and they still don't die. You know, these bulbs last forever. They take a bit of time to warm up, but you know, 10 minutes. And they are great, because what happens is these big old squares, they diffuse the light, so you don't have harsh shadows. You have a big white light source, which is perfect for photography. You know, if you're going to be doing this once a month, say, then this is an investment certainly I would consider. And yeah, stepping up again, I thought I'd include this. So this is, I mean, it's still 140 quid, but you know, you get the option here to really broaden your horizons. You know, this will allow you to kind of really pull back and have a nice wide shot, say, of your produce on a plate, on a table, you know. So this is for more like, if you want to get a bit more of a lifestyle shot where you want to see your product yeah, like on a sort of dress table with other stuff in there, you know, maybe like a Christmas shot or something like that. Okay, so this is for if you're doing this all the time, then I would encourage you to get something like this. But it's great, you know, it ships with everything you see there. So you've got 2 lights, soft boxes, and you've got these umbrellas that, you know, a bit more for modeling that is, but I guess you need a space for it as well. But it's certainly something to consider. I mean, it's not going to break the bank really for 140 quid. I guess it all depends on how much you're doing this. I mentioned that I did a photography webinar recently, and this was the kit that I bought for that webinar. It was a Christmas-based one, so there's lots of kind of all this stuff over here and all these like little chip-ins and stuff like that. But what I wanted to show you is these 2 lights. Now, these guys clamp onto the table. They're articulated in a couple of ways, so you can move them around a lot, which is perfect for when you're doing photography. You know, as you change that camera, you're going to want to change the lights too. I think it was 7-8 quid from our favorite Swedish retailer, and oh yeah, they were perfect. So, you know, if you're worrying about kind of going out and spending all that money on those lights I just showed you, then these guys will do the job. You just need some space in which to work, but for sure they did the job for us. So this was the setup I had at the time. You can see here I've got my scoop. You can see the mess everywhere, but you can see what I've done with the lights. You know, so I've clamped them down. I've got 1 light here, which is the blue light, providing most of the illumination. You can see by the shadows that I've got this guy right up there. This guy, you may not see it, but I've tilted it away from the produce, so it's just washing a bit of the light in there. What you don't want is super harsh shadows. You want to have a bit of light everywhere, but predominantly you want to have a main light source. And, you know, there's the resulting shot. You can see a bit of background there that I didn't get rid of. That will definitely happen to you if you start doing photography. But yeah, I'll cover how to avoid that sort of stuff as best you can in a bit. Okay, so lots of talk. I haven't even taken a photograph yet. And that's pretty much how it should go. You should spend a lot of time setting up and thinking about it before you even take a shot. But there's some things to consider. You know, it's not just set up and shoot. You would really want to have a think about it. So timer. Each camera phone will have a timer, and what this will do will avoid handshake. Well, it'll minimize it. You know, because as you're holding that camera phone and you press the button, your hand's moving just to press that button. So that's going to end up in a shake, no matter how still your hand is. So what is a good idea is to have a timer on this. So you set the timer to 3 or 10 seconds, hit go, get your hands nice and steady, and then wait for it to tick down. You don't have to do anything. It'll just tick on its own, and it will seriously, well, not always, but it does a good job of reducing handshake. This in use with a tripod, then you're laughing. I'm a professional photographer, and I use these guys. I got handshakes. What next? Oh, this is really important, is take lots and lots of pictures. So once you're set up, you don't want to spend all that time setting up, put your camera there, hit go, and then chuck it down and de-rig. That is, yeah, that's surefire way of disappointment. What you want to do is get it set up, have a clear idea in your head of what photograph you want to take. Once you've got set up, and take about 10 of them. And once you're done doing 10, then take more from different angles and just go for it. What you'll find is that you may stumble across something that you weren't intending to do, but which looks awesome once you're looking at it on screen. So, you know, you're not going to run out of camera roll, are you? So just go for it. Just take a load of images, and then once you got them up on your monitor and you can properly analyze them, then like I said, you'll have a series of ones that you'd intended to take, the ones that you'd identified from other images that you've gone ahead and copied, and then you have a load of freeform ones where you went a bit creative. Some will work, some won't, but it's definitely a way to go. Okay, depth of field. I said I'd cover it. I don't want to go into it too much because it is a bit boring, but you can see here the results of depth of field. The image on the left has depth of field, the image on the right doesn't. The one on the left is way more appealing because we are totally focused on the model. You know, there's that. The background is just a hot mess as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to see it. So this depth of field is a phenomenon that happens with cameras, and like I said, it's very boring, but most smartphone cameras, you probably won't be able to achieve it. it's a tricky combination of f-stop and shutter speed and all that jazz. But most smartphone cameras nowadays have like a focus blur or something like that. It's a digital version of depth of field. They change the names for each camera, so I don't know what they're called as a general term, but if you have a little digging around, you might find it, and it's definitely something that you should play around with. What I would encourage you to do is just play around with it when you're sat on the sofa. You know, if give yourself 10 minutes, have a little find to see if your phone does it. If it does do it, play around with it and get good at it. You'll probably find you'll use it for other things as well. It's a really, really nice way of taking some high impact shots, again, from your smartphone. All right, so I've said the word lots of times. Everyone's probably been gulping now. So post-production, it's got nothing to do with photography. You don't use a camera. It's basically taking the image that you took in the camera, doing some fancy stuff with it before you ship it out. I have said it, it's not that scary. It's basically, I mean, you guys have all heard of Photoshop. That is a industry standard application for post-production, amongst other things. But any image you ever see online from a semi-professional upwards will have been post-produced. There's very few images you'll ever see that haven't been. And it's not that scary. I would encourage you to investigate. Now, you can get post-production software on your smartphone. So it's a really nice pipeline. You can get it straight out of this camera roll into an app, do your bits and bobs, and then export it. It's and even if you're just affecting the contrast, go in it and have a play, because each time you play, you will get better at it. These two here, now Adobe, you probably all heard of Adobe. These two are free. I find that they're probably a little bit comprehensive for a novice. I can use it, but I'd rather use Photoshop on the desktop. So my favorite, and one that I would encourage you guys to use, is one called Snapseed. Now, probably not the most well-known, but it's definitely my favorite, just because it's super easy to get from camera roll through Snapseed to get post-produced and then out into your favorite, you know, either saved off and back into camera roll or into your social media. So this will pump straight into Instagram or Snapchat or whatever like that. So it's a great way of just, without having the fuss of kind of closing, going into Instagram and opening again. It just allows you to do all of that straight from the app. And again, what post-production is you open the image and you say, look, I want a bit more color, a bit less color. I want it to black and white. I want to put a vignette on it, which is that little furry black thing around the edges. It just, you'll have a go. You'll identify what you like from it, and you will like things from it. And yeah, just play around with it. And it's something that I would say it's a must. If you're going to do this often, you have to use some sort of post-production. And it ain't scary, so just go for it. And yeah, that's all, folks. So if there's guys who have any questions, or if anything wasn't clear, I'm happy to go through anything at all, even if it's some digging deep into some camera stuff or some post-production, feel free.
Great, thank you very much, Phil. That was excellent. Yeah, I've learned so much in that 3/4 hours that we can put to work too, I think. So yeah, thank you very much, Phil.
Welcome.
So any questions, guys? You can welcome to post them. And Phil, oh, there's just a question coming now. So the question coming, Phil. So I have a scratch on my GoPro lens. Is there any way to fix it?
Yeah, I think you may be in trouble there. I mean, you probably can get it fixed, but it's certainly not something you can do at home, I would imagine. And I'm not sure whether it's going to be cost effective to send it back to the manufacturers to get fixed. They'll probably charge you an arm and a leg. What you might want to do is take it to an independent camera shop and see what they say, because they may have a quick workaround, not like a Jessup's or like one of the fancy ones, because you're going to just be jumping through hoops. But I would say, you know, if you've got an independent camera shop where we're run by a guy or gal who are just super passionate about photography, then take it to them. They may have a solution. They may have done it before, but that's a little bit out of my out my sphere of knowledge, I'm afraid.
No. Another question. Any recommendations for a good place to buy backgrounds?
Oh yeah. So I guess do you mean like the small like little bits of card and stuff like that? I went to Hobbycraft and bought some A1. I think they were like a quid each or something. Textured backgrounds, same. I mean, wallpaper. It seems silly, but I mean, if you've got a B&Q and find yourself a whole load of wallpaper there, that might pay off. You might find it some wallpaper that's kind of a bit on brand as well, so you can use it all the time. And you've got a whole roll of it, so maybe that would help. Again, arts and crafts places and stuff like that. Also, don't be afraid to be creative. If you see an old leather chair that you think it's going begging on Gumtree or something like that, just buy it, rip it up, and use the leather. I mean, I guess it's a case of if the material that you spot is going to be big enough to allow you to take photographs within it, then get it. I mean, it's I think Gumtree would be a good place for that as well. If you can just look for old sofas and stuff like that. Okay, so use the back of it, which hasn't been sat on for decades. But I think you'd have to be just do some research. But I wouldn't go to you can find places which would unexpected and quite cheap, rather than going to backgrounds.com or whatever that exists. Be creative in where you look, I'd say. And also you can find background if you want to do like a lifestyle shot, then go into your kitchen, set your kitchen up and have a play there. So if you use depth of field correctly, where if you manage to get your product in focus, but then the rest is blurred out, then anything can be a background because it's blurry. But be creative.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Another question that's coming. What does decreasing shutter speed do?
Increasing the shutter speed?
Yeah, well, what does increasing and decreasing shutter speed do?
Yeah, so the way the camera works is that it's got like a little disc which opens up, takes a shot. So it opens up, lets light in, and it closes again. And the two main sort of values when you're controlling the camera is, first of all, how wide it opens, which is called the aperture or f-stop. And secondly, how long it opens for, and that's your shutter speed, right? So if you wanted to take a photograph, say, of somebody running, then if your shutter speed is open for long, then you're going to capture them running. So they're going to have run a yard or half a yard before it closes again. So you're going to get a blurry image. So if you're going to take a photograph of someone running and you want to have a quick shutter speed, so it takes that snapshot, so it opens and closes as quick as possible. So then you actually get, if you look at that now, to my hand, you don't want that if you want to take a photo. If you want sport photography, you don't want that blur. You want to be able to see just the hand. So you need a quick shutter speed. However, if the shutter is open for not very long, that's not a very good sentence. If it's not open for very long, then you don't get much light in, because the longer the shutter stays open for, the more time it has to bring that light in. So what you need to do is, once you change the shutter speed, this is getting very boring, is you need to change other values to compensate for that. So that would be then how wide the aperture, because obviously the wider the aperture, the more light comes in. So those are the two values that you're playing around with. This is with professional cameras, and also with, if you go into the apps that that I suggested right at the top of the presentation, you'll have that control. But yeah, that's what shutter speed is, and that's kind of why you have these two values.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Another question, when do you think produce is better photographed raw or cooked?
Yeah, I mean, I did look into this, and I think it depends on your output, on where you want to put them. I guess, it'd have to be dependent on what kind of image you choose. I mean, I think cooked looks great. I mean, raw is a little trickier, because you've got to make something which isn't appealing look appealing. I mean, okay, it is appealing. It looks great. Steak looks lush and all that, but it looks nicer cooked. So I guess, because if you cook it, then you could put those kind of those cross-hatch sear marks on there. I mean, you're onto a winner straight away if you can get that done. However, working with cooked food, there's a shelf life with the food. You got to kind of, there's a whole industry on how to photograph like cooked burgers. You know, the whole like Big Mac never looks like a Big Mac when you buy one, because that Big Mac on the photograph has actually got cardboard in between each layer so that it stays stable. And then the mayonnaise is actually PVA glue and like that. So cooked food is a whole other science. But you know, it's simply put, you know, once you cook that food, you've got to get that photo done super quick, and you know, juices all juicify and stuff like that. Can't find the word. So I would say that for you, if you're going to start out, raw is probably just a little bit less. You've got fewer hoops to jump through. They both look great. Cooked probably looks a bit better, but it's probably more difficult to do.
Other questions? I'm very good at these questions tonight. Is natural light good as a base and then add extra lights?
Absolutely. Natural light is brilliant, and especially we're blessed in Wales with lots of overcast days, which means that we have a nice flat neutral light that will kind of wash your product and not be too harsh, you know, with super harsh shadows. It'll just kind of be nice and diffuse. One thing I would suggest though is that you can't control natural light. So you know, you might have a whole week's worth of photography to do, and on day one you have overcast day, and then day two you want to be doing some similar shots, but it's super sunny outside. Then your images are going to look different, and that might be something that you're okay with. But you know, if I were to make a suggestion, I'd say that you want to have a consistent look and feel to all your images. So natural light's great, but you need to make sure you're using the same natural light, which isn't always easy. What those soft boxes do is they provide, I haven't got shares in that company or anything like that, but I'm a photographer, and I would always suggest if you're doing photography for any length of time to get some lights, what they do is they'll diffuse that light. So they got these harsh, super powerful bulbs within them, but then once that bulb goes through the cloth, then it gets diffused and it gets nice and washed out. So it's a good kind of halfway house, and you've got complete control over it.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you very much for brilliant questions and for answering them live, Phil. I'll just briefly go over what Mentor More Cymru has available for you and your businesses before handing over to Louise to go over what Cywine has available for you too. Therefore, from Mentor More Cymru, we have bespoke branding support available for your businesses. £750 grant available to eligible businesses, and this is for anything from stickers to flyers to anything for your business for marketing. Therefore, yeah, contact us or email us for more information on this and how we can help your business. We also have point of sale packs working with Hybyggu Cymru, Meat Promotion Wales, and these include seasonal recipe cards for your businesses. So you can include these in your pork boxes that you sell, or if you are on a stand or what have you. So yeah, contact us for these too, and we'll get you signed up to receive these through the post. But otherwise, we're here. Contact us over phone or email, and we're here to help your businesses to develop. Therefore, I'll hand over to Louise now to speak a little bit about Cywine and what they have available for you. Louise.
Yes, Elin, and thanks, Phil. That was a brilliant presentation. I've learned more, even though I've seen you do them before. Got a few extra little bits there, so brilliant. So quickly, what Cywine can do for you is we have lots of one-to-one sessions available. So if you've identified a part of your business where you could do with a little bit of extra support, whether that be with planning your finances, online marketing, it could be with your digital marketing campaigns, anything really that you think I really need a bit of help with that, you can get in touch and we'll try and find a mentor to help you out. We've also got a couple of grants that you can apply for through us. One of them is to help with design, so that's designing could be a logo or your brand name, which works really nicely with what Menter Moch can also offer. So if you get the design work done from us, and then Menter Moch can help you take that forward and get it onto your marketing materials. So, you know, use us, that's what we're here for. Most of the things that you need to apply for, we will need a business plan and a cash flow forecast, and you put an application in, and it's usually a really quick turnaround to find out if you're eligible. And then you can choose a designer from our framework that you like their work. So yeah, that's some of the things we've got. You can check out our website for any upcoming webinars we've got. We've always got new and interesting things coming on, as well as sort of our standard ones which are rolling. So if there's something that you want to recap, you can have a look on our website for that. But I don't want to keep you all too long, because, you know, we all need a cup of tea now and to put our feet up. But yeah, again, as Ellen was saying, if you've got any questions, get in touch with your development manager, and we should be able to help you out, hopefully. So it's lovely to have you all here, and diolch yn fawr iawn I ti, Elin, for organising a brilliant event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise. And thank you very much once again, Phil, for a brilliant webinar. Definitely learns a lot. And thank you very much for the audience for joining and for your brilliant questions. Therefore, yeah, without further ado, thank you very much. We'd be grateful if you could do our evaluation form. I'll put it in the chat now. If you could take a few minutes to fill this in for some feedback and for future events. That would be great. Thank you very much all. Diolch yn fawr iawn I bawb am ymuno. Gobeithio bod chi wedi mwynhau. Therefore, thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.